We have hairball pyrotechnics permit for April 7th. The one item, and Scott sent an email. The cover page says April 7th. The application says April 14th, but we have that corrected and know that it is April 7th. So any comments from public safety or Scott on? It has all the material safety data sheets and other things of what they're using, and it looks like the drawing is similar to last year. I'm just, it looks like everything's filled out. I just wanted to know if there's any concern or.
Yep, nope, everything's good. They're a good group to work with, and we'll be there on scene that day to make sure everything's set up properly, and they always do a wonderful job to make sure everything's safe. So
I don't, Paul, before you go, I don't understand the specifics of this. Is this the same as last year? Is this bigger? Is it different?
As far as the actual show, the pyrotechnic show itself, it's my understanding it's going to be about the same size because of the way the Corn Palace is laid out, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, we can only have and do so much to stay within the realm of safety.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Second. Okay, motion and second. Any other discussion? All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Kevin can't make that.
Oh, yeah? Okay, well, I'll make that motion.
Okay. You're not on that committee. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we are adjourned. 6:03.
Stephanie, before we start the regular session, this monitor is only showing about half of the, yeah.
Yeah, there's
You've got the terms of
there's a
service for
side
Vizio on the
window.
left side.
Yeah, it's showing the Vizio. There you
There you go, there you go.
There's a TV setting.
Okay. Do we have anyone here from New Home St. Mary's for invocation? Okay. If not, we'll begin with roll call.
Olson,
Here.
Rice,
Here.
Dosher, McCardle,
Here.
Barrington, Allen,
Here.
Sharks, Smith.
Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items.
I don't want to remove anything, but I did have a couple of things that I had a question about. On letter I know that there was some explanation about this in our staff report, but I wondered if you could just go through that for the public, the timeline on that and how that repair will work, please. Maybe you, Stephanie?
Sure. As far as the timeline, the bid opening, once the bids are open for the water main replacement, then they'll have the construction schedule set at that time. Are you talking about that or the other one on South Raleigh?
The other one that we're waiting until after.
Yeah. So the other complication or one of the concerns that we've had from the public, and I believe when Council Allen asked John Vermillion to come up, we do have one area of town, it's on South Raleigh, where they continue to have rusty water. And I don't think John Vermillion's here tonight. I told him he didn't have to be with the weather, where we keep having complaints of rusty water. The concern that we had is we couldn't go out and add that to our regular bid schedule because that's the detour route for Sanborn. So what we're going to do, we have two different projects where we're bidding water main, Sanborn as well as this one, Wallace and Hanson. So what we'll do is at the end of the Sanborn project, when we're no longer using that South Raleigh as a detour area, we're going to try to buy off one of the two bids to complete that water main replacement on South Raleigh as well. but we couldn't go out and bid it because you can't tear up the road at the same time as South Sanborn being, I'm on the right road, yes, the first phase of Sanborn being tore up. We had quite a bit of discussion about that with engineering staff and water department and SPN at our meeting that we had last week.
Thanks. And the other thing that I just wanted to talk about briefly is letter K about the Corn Palace Plaza. Just looking at those financials, we have a remaining $40,000. Is that earmarked for anything?
Okay.
Or is that just
Yep.
surplus extra money?
We had contingency set aside. We were fortunate that the sculpture came in or that we got funding, outside funding for that. So there is still a remaining contingency of $40,540. That is also, we're going to have to purchase some trash cans, out of that. That's pretty insignificant. And I did have some money earmarked up above for that. The other thing, we have some signage that we were adding with, I'm trying to think of the right word, pet waste removal station. And then the other thing that we have going on is we've had some issues with the pavers in front of the Corn Palace because of buses driving up on the curb or other equipment. And so we're doing one test area that's in front of Jones Supply where they're going to remove the pavers, they're going to lay asphalt down and then put the pavers back on, which is basically the same treatment they do on streets. So we've earmarked some contingency for doing that on the Corn Palace side of the street in the event that that looks like a better option than what they have in there now as well. So yes, there will likely be funds left over from that project.
And then will that money roll over, as I know that we still have some other things that we're interested in doing, like the pergola, the shade structure? Will that money just continue to be in that fund?
Right now, it's just in the general fund. The other money that we were working on phase 2 of the plaza was coming out of the entertainment tax fund. If the council wanted to have me include that as part of the supplemental appropriations that we do next month with the excess budget, I could certainly do that. I think as a council, you might want to have some discussion. We had 2 potential items that could be done next year. Either it was going to be the first phase of the Main Street bid with that 3rd and Main intersection or Corn Palace Plaza. Well, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do 3rd and Main, and without doing that one this year, you'll likely have to wait until 2020 because we'll have Sanborn tore up from 1st until 8th Street next year. So, it would push it off a year. We've actually talked about that with Main Street and Beyond as well because they're going to be implementing their bid and then they have to allow that fund to accumulate a little bit once you assess the taxes for those property owners as well. So if you as a council want to decide moving forward with a piece of that phase 2 on the plaza, you could certainly do that at that next meeting prior to the supplemental appropriation hearing.
Wasn't there talk of portable bleachers at one time? To go along with that little.
That was the
concert area?
shade structure that we had talked
Okay.
about.
Yeah,
Yep.
all right.
There was the shade structure and then there was the stage as well.
Right.
Yep, that was phase 2. But you also, as a council, might just want to keep your options open as you proceed with the Northwestern. We have that property that you've purchased and now the lease goes through, I believe, July 1st. But after that, we'll have that parking lot and other building as well. So you may be better off just having some planning on that area first.
Do you have any kind of an estimate of how much the garbage cans and the pet?
Yeah, that was all
those
within
kinds of things?
this 14,000 here. The things that we have remaining, the signage, the plaques for the dedication of the donation, as well as the sculpture recognition. There was just some other items that were included in there that we had to purchase out of there yet.
So it would leave us about 20.
No, that 40 is after those items.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
so if anything, it would be 40, you might be closer to 60 depending on actual cost.
Okay,
And I'll know that probably by April-ish, maybe May at the latest, because we'll have all that purchased by then.
great.
I've got one question, and Stephanie, I think you alluded to it in one of our correspondence, but the status of core engineering and the maximum amount of that at the swimming pool, do we have a better handle on that?
Well, I just got an email update tonight about 520. They're still trying to verify the X-ray welds and determine what's left. Right now, we're about $15,000 above what the estimated price was for core engineering. However, the contract says that, those are just estimated quantities and we still have to pay all actuals as we go forward. So they've made a little bit of progress. They have documentation on the ultraviolet welds now over the X-ray welds, but I don't have it all complete yet. So they're still working on it. They're estimating I could have up to another $5,000 of expense coming out. So the maximum overage would be closer to 20. But
At least it's not a higher number than
yep,
that.
and when I've been doing your pool budget, I've been anticipating that out of contingency. That's why we've held off on approving the block sealer. You will see that at the next meeting now because they've got all of the leisure pool exposed and dug out. So there's really not going to be any more unknowns that we didn't know about beyond the ground, underneath the ground. And even after the core engineering overage, we're sitting with about $15,000 of available contingency on that project, and it's about 73% done now.
Thank you.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any public comment? Not, roll call?
Olson,
Aye.
Rice,
Aye.
Dosher, McCardle,
Aye.
Barrington, Allen, Sharks.
Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Anyone?
I'm hoping they're leaving happy.
I got one. I
Yeah.
hate to bring it up. I was out getting signatures this weekend, and I heard a lot about 3rd Street.
Third.
3rd Street again. I'm tired of hearing about 3rd Street. They want to know what's happening.
Obviously, not a lot has been going on there. Reached out to the property owner again last week. For the last couple of weeks, the city has been trying to reach out to some structural engineers. And I think we finally heard back with some estimates from them. The problem is that the property owner doesn't want to allow the city to bring in our structural engineer until they run out of time to get their work done. Their building permit is valid through the end of March. So I guess things are kind of at a standstill while the property owner doesn't want to cooperate and keep the ball moving for this time period. Still hoping that they'll cooperate if they can't get the work done, and hopefully still avoid a lawsuit that way. And they'll allow the city to bring in our structural and hopefully a crew and just do the work without needing to go into court.
Justin, I have a question out of ignorance. When we bid like the Sanborn project, there's a certain leeway for weather like we're having today. Is there anything like that with the building permit? Because I understand the frustration, but honest to goodness, you're not doing anything probably this week.
Right. I don't believe so. I think when John issues those, they're usually good for about 6 months. And I don't know if John's here tonight, but I don't know that there's any weather allowance. I don't think that there is. I think that they're usually issued for a period long enough to account for any of that.
Any other comments from the public?
I've just got one, and thanks to Park and Rec Department, the JV hockey tournament pulled off this weekend. I got to volunteer some time on Sunday and Heard nothing but good comments. The place looked good, and we had people from Watertown and Fremont, Nebraska, and Sioux Falls, and I can't remember where else, but it ran in 3 days and looked like it all went pretty good. So everybody was happy when I was there.
Rushmore won the tournament, I think, didn't it? Okay, if there's nothing else, then we'll move on to the committee report, Public Health and Safety.
We had public health and safety meeting tonight called at 6 o'clock. We had one item on the agenda. It was the Hairball Pyrotechnics approval. It was approved unanimously by voice vote, and we adjourned at 6:03. The date is April 7th. Buy your tickets now.
Move to approve the report.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the hearings. First one is on the application to transfer retail on-off sale malt beverage license RB-2169 from David D. Backlund Jr., doing business as Party Bar, 117 South Lawler Street, Mitchell, South Dakota, to Kiki Leiferman, doing business as the Back 40 LLC, 511 North Main Street, Mitchell, South Dakota.
Move to approve.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next hearing is on the application of Kiki Leiferman, doing business as the Back 40 LLC, 511 North Main Street, Mitchell, South Dakota, for a new retail on-off sale wine license.
Move to approve.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to approve the application of Mitchell Main Street and Beyond for a special event permit, consumption permit, and noise permit located on Main Street between 5th Avenue and 7th Avenue to include 6th Avenue Plaza between Main Street and Lawler Street for the following Fridays, July 1st, July 6th, August 3rd, and September 7th of 2018 for the first Fridays on Main.
Can I assume that the May 4th was dropped in response to Mr. Mistakes?
No, that was an error on our staff's part. It should have, the application said, on the front,
Well,
did I go right by it?
The reason I'm wondering is there's no May 4th on item 10, the action. So do we want May 4th or not? Is that the conflict or not?
We do want May 4th, Jen Johnson, Mitchell Main Street and beyond. Yes, as she just said in my application, we did request May 4th as well.
And is that the tech graduation?
Yes, it is. Mitchell Tech's graduation is the same evening.
And why would we do that?
Well, we moved our event. In the past, we've done the once a month. It was on a Thursday. So when we came to the change that we would be doing it on a Friday evening, that's what it said. It happens to be on the first Friday, so it just makes sense to do it. After that, we came across that we would be having it the same night as Mitchell Tech's graduation, and we have been in contact with several folks at MTI to be sure that our events don't conflict. Some of their biggest concerns are drop-off zone, being right in front of the Corn Palace for the elderly and handicapped. We are working with them to move it to the north side of the building and have them enter through that space as well. It's my understanding that last year at that event that they actually recommended that door be open for the handicap and elderly to come in and out. It's 20 feet away versus going in through the front door and all that hoopla. I can't tell you for sure, but we're working on a few different things with them just for that data specifically. We requested to shut the street down at 4 o'clock every single one of our events. If we move it to 4:30, that'll allow for folks to drop off. They still won't be able to park on Main Street, but they still could use the front of the Corn Palace before graduation. I'm sure you've been to MTI graduation. If you show up at 4:30, you're probably going to be standing in the back. So that should alleviate that concern. I talked about the handicap. Parking was another one. I believe we lose about 28, 27 parking spots. I went out and counted one day. Between 5th and 7th for that event. I have since then reached out to Northwestern Energy to see if we could use that parking lot as additional parking because the city doesn't have ownership until July 1st. I have not heard back. Nope, not from Northwestern Energy. And then their last concern was in regards to sound. They said if we have a band out there blaring at 6th and Main at 5 o'clock, we don't want that to conflict with what's going on inside the palace for their graduation ceremony. So we are looking into starting our music around 6:30. Again, it's my understanding that 6:15 is when graduation should wrap up. Then they move outside and join us for the celebration for the rest of the night.
Well, I guess I don't understand why we don't do a different night. It's their 50th.
Mm-hmm.
Or why we don't just start the whole thing later.
Well, like I said, we would bring our vendors down and get all them set up around 5 o'clock, and then the actual music portion would start at 6:30. I know a lot of people don't go to the graduation. If you don't have a tie to Mitchell Tech, you can still come down at 5 o'clock and enjoy.
There's still
the first
3,000 people in the Corn Palace.
Absolutely, which is great.
Is that graduation starting for?
5 o'clock.
So everybody's there by 4:30.
Yeah,
What time do you close the street?
4 o'clock. But that's where we'll have to look into. Do we push it back a little bit later for this one event? Because if we're not having a band right at 5, we don't necessarily need to have that all shut down right away. But if it comes 6:30, we'll have plenty of time to set up, starting at 5. Yeah. 5 to 6:30, break at 6:30, start the second band at 7, but for this one, we'll probably just go with one entertainer. Right. Right. Yep.
Did I just hear you say there was a band from 5 to 6:30?
There will not be.
There will not be.
Right. That's one of the things we're working. But yes, on the other nights, absolutely.
So, question I have, and we've talked about in the Corn Palace is just packed. Scott, how early are people allowed to be in? I know I took part in 9 MTI graduations when I was on the school board and was told people were there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, saving seats and, other things. So do we know, could we or do we do anything different for this particular one?
Our doors open at 8 a.m. and people are free to come in.
And they might,
And they do.
And they usually do.
Yep. They'll bring coats
So-
and blankets.
they bring their blankets, right? Okay.
I would say it's 75% full by 4:15, 4:30.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, easily, if not completely full. One thing we did do, or will do this year is, if you're familiar with our floor set up with our seats, we didn't have the wings last year set up on the floor, so we'll have an additional 200 seats on the floor and then a reserved area for handicap seating. So it almost works out somewhat better to have the drop off over here anyways, because then we'll just go right to the handicap spot. But
Any other questions of me? We've interviewed our sponsors. Our sponsors fund this entire event 100%. We don't budget any dollars towards this. So I really take their feedback seriously, which is great. And we have a committee of 8 different members that we have talked about a lot. And so with the change, there's been a lot of discussion around it and why we moved it. Of course, we're trying to increase better attendance. We like the 1 month thing. Will we gain some out-of-town folks to come on Friday evening? Hopefully. There's no park and rec kids activities. There's no women's softball on Friday nights, which will hopefully bring people down. And our hope is that there will be more willing to stay longer than have to go home earlier. One fun fact that I like to share is we did a little poll, like the Daily Republic, I believe, is doing a poll about the lake, but we did a poll saying, hey, would you rather have Downtown Thursdays on Thursday, or should we change it to Friday? And I had 594 people vote, which exceeded my expectations, and 81% were in favor of the Friday evening. So if I am truly listening to our community, this is the right thing to do. Fun facts.
I would like to move approval of the application of Mitchell Main Street and beyond for the special event permits for the dates of the first Fridays.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Please keep working with MTI.
Yeah.
Entertaining motion for the city council to recess instead as a board of adjustment.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is a hearing on Valor Investment Properties LLC, 109, 111, 113 East Juniper Avenue. Valor Investment Properties LLC are requesting backyard variances of 10 feet instead of 25 feet as required to accommodate the construction of a multifamily property located at 109, 111, and 113 East Juniper Avenue, legally described as Lot X-1 and Lot X-2, Square 19, a subdivision of portions of Lot X of Square 19, the north one half of vacated East K Avenue and the west one half of vacated South Lawler Street, all in Weaver Square, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The property is zoned R4 High Density Residential District.
Mayor and Council, if I could direct your attention to the Planning Commission minutes of February 26th, you would see that the Planning Commission did hold a hearing on this request and there's also some background information in the minutes about why they requesting such a variance. And the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend this variance. If I could put this in perspective, X1, I know this is a little dated photograph, but X1, there's I believe there's a sevenplex that's already there. Under X2 there's one that's is currently under construction. Well, what happened is, you probably noticed when the plats came in, then they were going to be transferring the ownership. Well, initially what happened is the two plexes were going to be on the one big lot, and then they wished to transfer them. And then, so what happened is when they started doing financing and checking, then they didn't meet the setbacks because there's a property line that cut through them. And so that's what the reason is, to try to facilitate the transfer of that. So X2 could have a different party owning it and versus X1. The X3 on the master plan, if you saw it in the packet, is going to be a lot further south, so you wouldn't have a setback issue. There was a discussion, in case you were wondering or saw there was some talking about in the Planning Commission minutes about access to that. That street is vacated. And so there is going to be an asphalt driveway to get to X2, but it's going to be a private driveway. And so that's what in the legal description you probably see where it talks about vacated Lawler Street. So again, this is it was to try to accommodate now that they want to they have the ability to transfer X1, X2, and X3. And I'll try to answer any other questions. The applicant is here if you do have any questions of that. So
We've had some drainage issues down there. Does this add to, detract?
I don't want to. What I understand is they have retained SPN, and that at some point when they also, the same people that own X1, 2, and 3 also own the part where it says 20. I think that says 20 up there, but they own that other side. And my understanding is at some point when they get to that, they're going to put a pond in there. So my understanding is you have retained SPN to accommodate that. So
I already get a lot of calls.
Mm-hmm. This is also, I remind you too, this is also part of the Clockworks TIF district too. I failed to mention that.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is a hearing on Roger and Tammy Hartley, 504 West 13th Avenue. Motion to table until March 19th, 2018. Roger and Tammy Hartley are requesting an oversized variance of 2,448 square feet versus 2,000 square feet as required for construction of an accessory building located at 504 West 13th Avenue, legally described as Lot 11, Block 18, Capital Edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The property is zoned R2 Single Family Residential District. Planning Commission does not have a recommendation at this time.
If you noticed in the Planning Commission minutes, they asked the applicant to produce a drainage plan, and so they tabled it, so it would be appropriate if you would just table it as well.
Move to table to March 19th.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is a hearing on Jeffrey and Mary Lanning, 76 South Harmon Drive. Jeffrey and Mary Lanning of 76 South Harmon Drive are requesting a conditional use permit to construct an accessory building on a non-contiguous lot legally described as lots 1 through 4, Block 17, Indian Head, 3rd Edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The said real property is zoned RL, Lake Residential District.
Okay, again, this application was submitted to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and they did unanimously recommend approval. What the Lannings own is that parcel that's behind where you see the trees. Now, the reason it's not contiguous is that there's a alley that is platted, even though it's physically, you probably can't tell, but that's the reason why they're not contiguous. And in the RL district is if it's an accessory building that is not on the contiguous, that's really, but if that alley, if that was a vacated alley or that wasn't a platted alley, it would be just, it is. But that's just the way the code is read that way. Other than that, the building's going to meet all the other requirements. So.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertaining motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City Council to reconvene in regular session.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to approve agreement number A2018-13, an agreement for retail recruitment and visitor insights solution.
For the 2018 budget, the city council had discussions on taking or moving forward with a retail initiative. Part of that discussion was the initial request was for $50,000 to proceed with year one of an agreement. The council's response to the request was that they would put $25,000 into the budget, and then if they asked actually me to seek out partnerships in the community to match that $25,000 to get us to the total amount necessary. Based on that, we've had several meetings with representatives from the city, from the chamber, from Main Street, from Development Corporation, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Overall, they first looked at two different proposals. A smaller group did. From that review, the recommendation came back to move forward with Buxton and have that presented to the full group. That full group presentation, I think in my staff report I said December 11th, but it was January 11th. There was over 40 people that attended that presentation. So I noted in my staff report that some of the things that were noted that they really liked about Buxton over the other company is they really focus on the retention of existing businesses and what they can do to help them market and expand their current base of customers. They also looked at adding $15,000 for a tourism insights component. That basically looks at, when we say tourism, we're thinking of people coming to the Corn Palace, but it looks at anyone who's traveling through our community and stopping and what kind of brands or what things would also they would purchase if they were stopping while coming through our community. Based on the initial presentation and the follow-up discussions by each of those boards at their individual board meetings, they have agreed to match that $25,000 that was needed to get into the first year of the agreement. From there, the CVB also contributed $15,000 to add on that tourism component. That's a one-time fee. That's only that first year of the contract. We did note that during the discussions, they started with, I think, 20 licenses for this LSMX, which is the app that comes with their modules. And we did get that up to 35 initially. They said they would have no problem expanding that into the future if we need that as well. The group also noted that even though it's a 3-year agreement, you can cancel that agreement after the first year if you don't want to proceed and you're not seeing value in it. Some of the other comments that I thought were really good is that the data is really going to give you a better idea of where your trade area actually is by looking at that credit card data. Also, have a better understanding of what our retail leakage is. It gives you better categories of spending. One difference between the other company that we viewed in Buxton is Buxton has the ability utilizing that credit card data to really pinpoint the buying power in specific individuals. They don't know Stephanie Elwine personally, but they know There may be someone who's 43 who would prefer to drive a Ford versus a, I don't know, another kind of truck, Toyota or something like that. So they can pinpoint down to your specific buying habits. Trying to think of some of the other things that were really pointed out, and I'll open it up. There was quite a few of the council members that sat on the various boards as representation for their boards, so they can speak to that as well. I would say overall, it was very positive feedback. I think the decision that the council made to form the partnership versus the city just leading it was really good. Those business members that were able to participate in the questions and in the analysis of whether or not to move forward, they had great insight and they asked really great questions, and seeing how they thought their businesses were going to benefit, I thought was really great. The main thing that everybody focused on is it's not just retail recruitment, it's how do we help our existing businesses expand and stay in Mitchell so that we can continue to be the same quality of life that we have now. But I'll just open it up for any questions or questions. I have plenty of information I provided in the packet. So,
when would this agreement start? You said it's a 1-year
yep.
deal. When would it start? I mean, if we approved it, when's the start date of the first year?
It would be after we sign the contract. They gave us a kind of a timeline of what to expect in the first 30, 60, 90 days, and that was included in the service or work service that was outlined. I think based on the conversation that we heard, everybody would like to start it now and get some of that data collected, because they do a snapshot of what your spending is. So it would not follow the calendar year. We would start mid-year and carry forward.
Do they track internet sales or anything like that?
That question was asked, and I do believe that they said that they could differentiate with online versus. Anybody else remember from that presentation? I know that question was asked because Brian Heisel, I think, asked the question during one of our sessions. And I think they told us that they can, I don't want to speak for out of term, but I was pretty sure they told us they were going to give more information than what we're getting now, because that was one of the comments that someone in the audience or someone in the group had said that that's better than what we're getting now for information.
They could to some extent, but I thought well, I'm trying to recall, but there are some limitations as to internet sale delivery versus online, depending on whether the retailer exists in both places and that type of stuff. But they would be able to tell what was the amount purchased and then not be able to subtract that from what is not purchased locally in the stores.
So if I take my credit card, I'm in Sioux Falls, I go shopping, they know that I'm in Sioux Falls? Yep. So they'll tell, so that's your leakage, that they'll know who went over there and bought and all that, and what they're buying, what stores they're seeing, whether it's Target, Kohl's,
and they're not necessarily even going to tell you brands as much as they're going to tell you people that normally buy in this zip code go to Sioux Falls to purchase restaurants, or they go to Sioux Falls for movie tickets, or they go to Sioux Falls for concerts, or they go to Sioux Falls for sporting goods. More of a category of sales than specific brands. But then what they do is they take our demographics, and like I said, they know whether I like Ford or Toyota or all, if I shop at Sam's versus Costco or Walmart versus Kmart. So based on the demographics of the spending power within our area, they can tell you which retailers are better suited or better matched for your community. That was one of the questions that one of the participants asked is, what if we just come in and we say we want a Target? Are you going to just say okay, or are you going to be honest with us? And they said, no, we're going to tell you what the data that you have for your community supports. We may come back and say, you're not really a Target community, you're a Shopko community, or you're a, whatever the option is. They also spent a lot of time talking about I don't know a different way to say it, but they said cannibalism. You're not going to just add a business that's going to take the business away from another one. You look at ones that's specific that you're missing in your community because person A doesn't buy this, they're going somewhere else to buy it. The other thing that they really liked about this group is the partnership and the fact that they work with us to build that relationship. So you're not just turning over your city to someone else to represent you. They're giving you the information so you're representing yourself well. So once you end that contract, that relationship still exists as you move forward. They did say some cities maybe do it 2 years. Some do it 3 and some go beyond 3, just depending on what their unique characteristics are of their
So
community.
Mitchell's a region shopping center. So you got Mount Vernon, you got the White Lakes, Plankinton's, Woonsockets. Will they track some of their data that if they're going
Yeah,
to Sioux Falls at those same stores that you could do something here?
The cool thing about it is they actually are going to give us a better definition of what our retail trade area is based on the spending, where people are spending from and where they're coming from. So if I live in Woonsocket and I come here and spend my money, they know my home address, zip code is there. So now we know they're in our trade area. So we think we know our trade area. This will give us better information for our trade area as
Or
well.
we may find those people from Woonsocket drive right on by on their way to Sioux Falls.
How often do they give the data? Like every couple months or?
And I should say, they did offer to be here. We did say that they didn't have to come, which was probably good because I don't think he would have made it here with both interstates now closed anyway. So they actually give you a pretty good outlined. Oops. Yep. It's a once, yeah, you get an annual snapshot of your data, but they tell you the steps that they go through in researching the community, defining your trade area, who are your customers.
This is totally different than when I was in business. And when I was in business, you had to go look for your customers. Now you can just go track them.
Yeah, it's a little scary. And actually the LSMX, there was quite a few people that stayed after the large group presentation just to see it more in action. This gives that same data about our trade area to local businesses, and then they can sign up. They can say they're having a promotion, and the system will say, okay, you have 50 people in this area that would typically come buy your product, and they would prefer to be marketed on Facebook. And here we'll automatically build this ad campaign for you. You just put dollars towards it. And it basically does a lot of that step-by-step work for you. Another question that one of the participants brought up was, do you just turn this over to us and walk away? No, they come in and they do training with our businesses as well at how to use this information to benefit your business, about whether it's the retail trade area or the LSMX or the data we're gathering. And you can even use this for marketing. Like if we know we have an event going on in town, you could use that for doing some of your digital campaign on your product.
There were several things that and you've talked about some of them, Stephanie, but there were a few things that really jumped out at me with this particular company. One of them was that they really work so that we develop the relationship so that we're not totally reliant on them. And the good thing is that it's not just Buxton and Mitchell, South Dakota looking for people to come to us, but they're working with people who are looking for places to come and invest their resources and build up their own businesses. So they're respected on both sides of the equation, if you understand what I'm saying. So I felt like that was a really positive thing, that it was something that people on the other side of the table are coming to them, we're coming to them, and they're going to help us make those relationships. And then they're not just going to carry and do all the work for us, but they're going to train us so that when 3 years are up, we have a group of people here that are ready to continue to build on those relationships and continue to do what they've started and have it be ongoing. So I thought that was really good. One of the other things that I thought was great was that they're going to work with our local retailers, and this is one of the things that Stephanie talked about, but to tell us what we're lacking. So when John Smith is going over to Sioux Falls, or Joan, or whoever it is, and they're buying baby clothes, or they're buying home goods, or whatever it is that they're buying, that information is going to come back to the people here in Mitchell so that we can say, hey, who among us is going to be able to meet this need, so that we have a place that people can make those purchases on a local level. Those are basically the things, some of the things that I really appreciated about them. They're just an outstanding group, and I'm really excited to see what they can do for us.
Stephanie, are their fees the same in years 2 and 3?
No, years 2 and 3, it's only $50,000 because that $15,000 tourism tourism insight is a one-time fee. And again, you have the option to opt out after the first year if we're not happy.
So that tracks just credit card, does it track debit cards?
Yes, that question was asked twice, so I do know I remember the answer to that one.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Yep. Actually, Jeff Smith asked that question.
Big Brother is watching, right?
I guess the other thing, just going back for anyone who maybe is listening and didn't hear or doesn't recall the original conversation with council, because that's been back in May of last year, July. There are several cities in the state that have done these initiatives. Those are the cities now that you've seen retail growth, and they've done these 5-7 years ago, and you're seeing the effects of that now. Some of the successful communities that we looked back to, I guess from my perspective in city management, city administration, is you look at Brookings, you look at Aberdeen, Pierre, Yankton, Watertown, all of those have been actively doing this kind of studying their communities to maintain their trade area and their quality of life over the past 10, 15 years, and you see results of that now.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action on resolution R 2018-10, survey plat of Schmake Track 1 in the south half of the southeast quarter of Section 11, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th PM, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Did you skip 17, Mayor?
We'll come
Oh,
back.
we can,
I do Schmake
we'll go- okay.
I'll do Schmake first. Basically, this was presented to the Planning Commission at their last regular meeting, and this is just outside our zoning jurisdiction, but it's within 3 miles of the city, so that's the reason we have to see it by state statute. So
We've had this conversation, Neil, why?
it's state statute says at 3 miles we have to see it. So.
Right, but you're in the business. Is there some logic to that? Are they assuming
Well, I
we're
think
gonna
some of
gobble
it
this up
was
someday, or?
there are some cities and counties that have different arrangements, whereas we have a 1 mile jurisdiction. Some have 2 and some have 3. Some have a joint in between there, and I don't know why I think because they just left that open so that in theory we could go out to 3 if we wanted to. But
I should let it go, but it bothers me.
Well, yeah.
I probably did.
Yeah.
I probably sponsored.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on resolution R 2018-09, a plat of Lot 2 of Tech Center Edition in the southwest quarter of Section 26, 103 North, R60 west of the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
This too was presented to the Planning Commission. They did recommend approval. My understanding is this is to try to identify the parcel where the tech center is. There's lots of different reasons, sort of like what DWU did is for finance purposes. There's also if somebody is donating, then you need an actual parcel to track.
So this is just defining
Just defining that
what's
out
there.
part. Correct. And so that's so that you can track what parcels are going to what. And
Motion
so
to
that's my
approve.
understanding.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2018-11, South Dakota Department of Transportation Bridge Reinspection.
I could answer any questions if the council has it. This is a pretty standard agreement through the state of South Dakota. It's for the West End Bridge that needs to be inspected every 2 years. I did note in our meeting this morning with the mayor that we did have a new company that has opened up a business here in town that's on the state list that we could look at using in future years. It's Infrastructure Design Group. Previously, we didn't have anyone locally that was on the state approved list. So just in case you all weren't aware that they opened up here as well.
This is on the subject, but off the agenda item. When we do Sanborn, does the bridge automatically get re-inspected at that time? Do you know? Or
They all have to be inspected every 2 years.
regardless of construction?
This one you just did when I got here.
No,
We're at
I
the-
understand, but, and again, I'm bridge inspection, but not West End. So we could completely reconstruct the Sanborn Bridge, and if it wasn't the year, nobody would look at it?
In 2 years, you would have to do it after the construction. It has to be inspected every 2 years. So that's why you're doing West End now, because
Right.
that was done in 16,
Right, I get
15,
that.
16.
I
right.
just, makes
You're
me
wondering
look-
if inspection is included in construction, and then
Right.
you could, if it was in the odd year, then you could
Right.
skip? It's
Well, it makes me a little
state-
nervous that
State
we're gonna-
DOT question.
We're going to work on a bridge and then just kind of, trust that it's okay.
There will be inspections as part of that project when the bridge is complete, that it made the construction guidelines, but it won't be part of the re-inspection program that's governed through or followed by the state.
So you're afraid we would change it and make it worse?
No. Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve Resolution R2018-12, a resolution establishing a naming policy for the city of Mitchell.
Well, thanks to Justin, I think we have it condensed a lot, and it's much easier to follow and understand. And we no longer have to discuss whether the donor is living or deceased, because now they're all just going to fall under honorific naming in that instance, and it really cleaned it up and made it easier to follow. We did also add the 2 areas that had mentioned about advertising and donor recognition, and condensed down the exclusion based on the conversations from the last meeting. So,
And you put in 15 years for the timing in this.
we didn't really hear a clear, different
No,
number. I
that's
know I
fine.
had
I'm
mentioned
just
15,
wanting to
but yeah.
make sure that,
Yep.
that's mentioned. And if we come up with something that we think should be different, I suppose we can have a different amount of years based on recommendations.
And really, it's set up so that the council has to approve them by resolution. So if you want to have a different term, you can do that in the adopting resolution anytime.
I'm not real excited about more ordinances and regulations, but I really think you people have done a great job, and this is one of those areas where I think for clarity and moving forward and to avoid some of the issues we talked about last time, where it's a lot of money today, and then 40 years from now, people say those fools back in 2018 gave away this asset for, X amount of dollars. So I'll move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is action on Resolution R2018-13, establishing boundaries for proposed bid 3 and setting terms for initial board members.
Well, as I kind of went through in the staff report, this would just be the first step in moving along with the proposed bid district by Mitchell Main Street and beyond. I think Jen's still here. She can talk more about how they're envisioning it. But procedurally, this is just setting the boundaries of the proposed bid district and setting the initial board members and terms for those members. And you need to do that first before you can have the bid board meet and propose the actual project and come back and formally create the bid and everything. So just the first step, and I'll turn it over to questions or comments.
Just for the people watching and listening, Justin, can you give us the basic boundaries, 1st to 12th, whatever?
Yep, I believe it's first, or actually from the depot to the Corn Palace is probably the easiest way to describe it, and it's just Main Street itself.
Now, when you say Main Street, does that include just the buildings facing Main Street, or would that include the off-street businesses like, the Cornerstone and Bonnie's Decor and that kind of thing?
My understanding is just the buildings that actually face Main Street. Jen might be able to clarify that if I'm wrong. Is that correct?
Yep, you're going to have to come up.
I know, Jeff is going to come. Yes, the buildings that have Main Street addresses. So it goes from the Depot to 7th Avenue, Main Street properties only. The properties like Bonnie's, Cornerstone, those buildings were located within Zone 2. Zone 2 had a lot more opposition. That's why we condensed down to just Zone 1 for our proposed bid. There are a few different parking lots, and Justin didn't approve or like my map too much, but it was just an easy map. I will give him that. But if you want to see the actual outline of the buildings, we can go through Davidson County's page and kind of make a squiggly line all around. But from the Depot up to the Corn Palace, up to 7th Avenue.
And I believe this list is all the properties. So
Yeah.
this is actually in your resolution. It has a table of all the properties if you want to go down and see everything that's included in the list.
Right, we listed out the actual, because a lot of those are just rented and they're not owned exactly by the folks listed there. So that page right there has the actual business and the owner, the
What will that
legal
be?
description. $44,593.
And I believe 6-8 months ago, was it 85?
Yep, and that was including Zone 2. And so our development committee, which a lot of them are here tonight, so I have to give them props for showing up and helping us out, but we ran into a lot of opposition in Zone 2. That the project won't be right in front of me. We walked through all the benefits, and so we said, okay, if we just take this down to Zone 1, how much could we raise? And we can raise $44,000 a year just by going with Zone 1 owners, and there are 74 total.
It is.
Absolutely. That's our hope, is to come back and say, look what happened, look what can be done. It's improved your business too, sitting over there at 3rd and Lawler or down at 12th and Main.
That self-imposed tax is based on $5 per $1,000 of assessed valuation, property valuation.
Correct. Yep.
So an average business is how much a year roughly?
I think we averaged it was around $300 a year. We do have a minimum of 120. There are a couple folks that are less than that, and then the max is 3,000, which there are a couple properties that did hit that too.
Were there many businesses that were opposed with it, or?
There are 17 owners that are not in favor for one reason or another. Actually, we were happy to see that a handful of them are out-of-town owners.
So the idea that, I'm killing the messenger, I realize that, but these Zone 2 people, have they seen a lot of people who walk Main Street with the blinders on?
Apparently.
They don't, they're people in neck braces and they're unable to look down the side streets and see the opportunities and unique shops there.
Oh, there's a lot of them out there, and they all called me.
Some of them fixed up their own buildings too.
And that was part of the,
They
yep.
don't believe that they should be fixing up somebody else's building.
That's true.
And we do
I
have,
agree with that too.
we do have that actually in Zone 1 too. We have some yes votes that said, well, half of it will go towards the grant, but I fix up my building. I pay for it because I do a really good job, and now I'm going to fix up my crappy neighbor's building next door to me. But they see how we have to have some skin in the game if we're going to get this project to push through, and that's kind of what pushed them over the edge.
And Jeff Logan from Main Street and Beyond, and having made some of the calls, it wasn't all of Zone 2 who was against it. I mean, there were those who were in and
Right.
signed, but
Just
just
not
not enough. And the problem was, very realistically, is those who are against it, well, it's a block over. It's not in front of me. What benefit do I get? Well, yes, and trying to describe the larger neighborhood, and I agree with you, Marty. I think in time they will see it, but sometimes you don't see it until it's there, and then they'll read kind of like 6th Avenue Plaza up here.
Until after the improvements.
They love
are
it now
there.
that we've all
Now
seen
that
it.
it's here.
So I think that's where we are. But there was a mix in Zone 2, but there were more against, so we said, okay, you don't see the benefit, we won't include you.
Let's focus
They
on
will.
Well,
what we could
Jeff,
do.
while you're up there, I just have to say that we talked with this Buxton thing about the region and all that kind of thing. You are one of the biggest assets to Mitchell. Having a movie theater in town, I mean, that's going to draw more area people than just about anything else. And I understand you're all gung-ho, but you're a block off Main Street.
I'm a block.
You bring a lot of people to see businesses that have nothing to do with you, and they come in, they see them, and they come out, they see them.
Well, we hope we do that, and.
No, you do that.
Thank you. And I do also have a building, one building on Main Street, at Second and Main, where the art gallery is. Also, my own feeling, and the reason I supported it, even when we were in Zone 2, was that we're all in the neighborhood, and we kind of sink or swim together, and, that's why we go out and we're picking up the city parking lot. We're picking up litter from in front of our neighbors' stores at night after they've closed, because it's our neighborhood and we want our neighborhood to look good. And that's why we support it. And hopefully there will be more people see that. And I think that too, it's the neighborhood. Sometimes we get criticized for vacancies, but if you're going to open a business, do you want to go in a bad-looking neighborhood or not? So that's why we think the streetscape, it's a chicken and the egg thing, but by having an attractive area, you say, those are the neighbors I want, that's the area I want to be in. Do you want to be in the rundown mall or the shiny new mall? Well, that's right where we are. So we want to improve the look of our neighborhood, and that's what we think this will do through the three prongs of it. First off, the streetscape, sidewalk, curb, so forth improvements, aesthetics. The other thing, through the grants, allowing some of these buildings that very often it's the previous owner. I really don't want to criticize the current people in there, because sometimes it was a previous owner and they're playing catch up. And being able to give them a grant coupled with the no interest loan that we already have, zero interest loan, that arm, and then also city code enforcement. I think we can turn our Main Street, Sioux Falls Main Street. There's a lot of comment this morning on Facebook, and Sioux Falls Main Street is saying, oh, it's wonderful over there on Phillips Avenue. And that's true, but I can remember when it wasn't. And they turned it around. I think we can do the same thing. Same in Aberdeen and Watertown, a lot of the towns. Yeah, Brookings, Spearfish. I think we can do the same.
Well, you two are up there, on topic but off subject. The two-way streets, has it made a difference? Is it just psychological?
So far, we're liking it. I've not seen problems. I used to see people going the wrong way on the one-way previously. I think.
But I mean, as far as generating additional business.
I think it's easier getting around down there, and I think the people to really ask, and I haven't talked to them recently on it, would be like my neighbors, Bonnie's Decor, and some of those people who are really having trouble. They had people call and say, we just couldn't find your store, couldn't get to it, the trade area people. And not everyone grew up here, and even in the smaller towns. So I think it makes it easier to get around. I believe it's helping, but to say definitively, I'm not the one to ask.
Resolution R 2018-13.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?